All right, let's turn our focus here now. The Department of Basic Education says it is disappointed with the continued media reports about plans to introduce unisex toilets in schools. This is based on an initial draft discussion document from consultations that are currently underway on the guidelines for the socio-educational inclusion of diverse sexual orientations, gender identity, expression and sex characteristics in schools. Now, let's discuss this. We are now joined via Zoom by Professor Anthony Brown, the head of Department of Educational Psychology at the University of Johannesburg. Prof, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I would imagine that the disappointment, from the various groups within society stem from a lack of perhaps understanding this project that is currently underway. Talk to us about this particular section of the department's draft guidelines around bathrooms and change facilities.
Good afternoon, Unati, and thank you for having me, and good afternoon to the viewers. I think it is important that we deal with this matter from a broader perspective of education, ensuring that schools adhere to the constitutional promises, guarantees, and affirmations of all learners, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identities. Also, the education system in South Africa has promised a safe and enabling inclusive learning environment to all learners. And so when we look at these guidelines aim to ensure that we widen inclusion. Now, if we have to narrow this discussion to issues of unisex bathroom, we actually miss the point. First of all, I want to make clear when I looked at these guidelines under no intention insist that that single gendered bathrooms should be abolished. It is requesting that there should be additional bathrooms catering for learners with transgender identities and gender non-conforming identities. But all of this is in a broader scheme of providing a safe, inclusive, and socially just learning environment for all learners. And I want to add to this. Many of our young people, on the basis of discrimination, violence, and when they don't feel comfortable because their identity has not been recognized in the school, has dropped out of school because they can't cope with the current educational or classroom environment, to the extent where a number of them have lost their lives through suicide. In this year, we had 3 cases only, and we are saying safe, enabling, inclusive learning environments for all children.
And the problem is we don't talk enough about this, because if you listen to some children who suffered under the discrimination, as an example, I mean, some of them are talking about not going to visiting the toilet or the bathroom at all during their period at school. I mean, we're talking in excess of about 6 to 8 hours, of them not visiting a toilet because of fear of being discriminated against. The joint statement that was released by various civil society organizations essentially saying that the guidelines aim to ensure that schools are addressing and eliminating historic and ongoing discrimination, as you say, as well as harassment and victimization. Talk to us then about, just the importance as well as the benefits of inclusion in schools.
Inclusion ensures that learners feel safe, that they feel comfortable, that they feel recognized and affirmed. And therefore, when learners feel welcome in a school because the environment is enabling, these learners learn much better, the learning capacity is increased, and therefore their future opportunities to live a life that will enable them to be productive citizens one day is increased. And so therefore, I think that inclusive education is fundamental. But also there's one thing, Unati, that I want to underscore, that inclusive education has much to do with issues of rights. It's the right of this learner to receive quality education for all, regardless of background. And so we ensure that all learners have equal opportunity to perform and have life chances in future. And that is why inclusive education is so important. But also, inclusive education does not stop in the classroom. Inclusive education prepares for an inclusive society, because schools are but microcosms of society. And when we have an inclusive environment, learners learn how to respect one another. They learn to understand diversity, and they learn to celebrate this diversity. So this is not only for the classroom, this is also for young people when they leave the school environment, that they know how to get along in the broader community spaces. And that's what inclusive education aims to do.
Let's just quickly wrap this conversation by discussing about the criticism that has been leveled at government. The first one is that, a fear of safety around other students who will then be sharing these bathrooms. That's one. And the other one is, in fact, I'd like to know what you think about those that actually say that this is a cover-up, for the fact that the department has failed for many years to provide adequate toilets to learners generally, and they see this opportunity, instead of building two sets of toilets, as one, to just build only, that one. And this is actually the department just not playing its role.
I do want to disagree with that criticism, Unati. First of all, the discrimination and the violence has been happening in our single-sex bathrooms that's currently available in our schools, based on the fact that young people are uncomfortable with othering and difference. And we are saying that these additional bathrooms then enable a space for young people to be safe, and then offer them that their needs are met within the school context. We think that our education system had to deal with so many issues of inclusion over the last how many years of democracy. And it's important that to understand that this is a journey. We won't change these difficulties that we have inherited over almost 60 years of injustice and discrimination on the basis of certain identities. And we celebrate and acknowledge the movements that the Department of Education has made to make these kind of suggestions available. Also, we do think that government and the Department of Education has to increase their ability to provide better ablution facilities for all children. This include the gender-neutral bathrooms, improve the facilities at school, but this is an ongoing journey, and we acknowledge and welcome these kind of suggestions by the Department of Education. As I said, it is towards a safe, enabling, inclusive learning environment.
All right. Thank you so much, Prof, for your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate your time. Professor Anthony Brown, the head of the Department of Education Psychology at the University of Johannesburg, weighing in on that.